Theater is a form of connection and communication, all centered around the art of collaboration. From the community playhouse and educational institution to the many regional theaters, on Broadway and in the corporate entertainment world, including cruise ships and industrial events, collaboration is at the heart of every show, every production. Collaboration is the blending of art and science, of creativity and the production process. It is the dance that happens when artists, technicians, designers, producers, musicians, marketers, and a wide variety of passionate individuals bring their talents together to develop a singular experience. Projects with Jason is one such collaboration seeking to inspire, educate, connect, and entertain through a series of unique, multifaceted experiences which seek to explore the wonderful spirit that is generated when professionals of all backgrounds and experiences intersect with rising theater students and educators, bringing together working professionals and talented students in a crucible of collaboration that happens when you put people together in a room and charge them to create something. The results are very special. This series of works is designed to enrich and inspire students, educators, artists, and all others as we look to connect, be entertained, and grow as artists and human beings.
I'm Jason Daunter. Join me in our Projects with Jason team as we explore the world of innovation, design, and all things behind the scenes of live entertainment. Designed to showcase key professionals and enable interactive dialogue between theater students and these artists. Hosted by Principal Lighting Designer for the Disneyland Resort, Casey Wilkerson. Casey is joined by accomplished sound designers Cricket Myers and Julie Ferrin, whose work has covered regional theaters and Broadway. Join us behind the tech table.
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Casey Wilkerson, and welcome to Tech Table, where we bring students and educators together with notable backstage artists from across the entertainment industry. And in this episode, we're here to talk about audio and sound design. Now, I think sound is probably one of the more misunderstood of the backstage disciplines, and this is odd because everyone I know considers themselves to be an expert on sound, right? But there's a lot to sound design. There's art and science. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And the thing is, it's similar to lighting in that much of it happens outside the view of the rest of the team. We work sort of like off to the side. And there's a little bit of mystery about what goes on with sound and sound design. So we want to dig into that a little bit as well. When we reached out to some of our educators, they told us that what they really want is to understand some of the best practices or guiding principles that they can utilize when approaching sound in their theater programs. So that's what we're hoping to provide in this episode. And to do that, we're going to meet several sound design students and educators from around the country, in addition to our two guests. So let's meet our first sound designer, Cricket Myers.
Hi.
Hey. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Welcome, and thank you for doing this.
No problem.
I appreciate it tremendously. I'm hoping we can get some good stuff out of this today that people can use.
I'm excited.
So why don't you tell us? We worked together once, I think, right, on the Artist Rise Up thing at what theater was that?
Atwater Village,
So maybe
there, or El Portal. I've done a couple of theirs.
I think it was the El Portal. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I remember about that, though, because I'd seen your name for around for a long time, and what I remember about that event is that it was something that obviously came together very quickly, and everyone showed up, and we had the stuff that we had, essentially, and we just put on a show.
Yep.
And I remember seeing like all of the other designers and the technicians that we had there on site just jumping in and doing. And I thought, you know what, this is like, it was one of the coolest theater experiences because we had no time to plan. We had no time to just like really map anything out. It was a crazy experience. What was that like for you? Just jumping in and doing that. And I guess my second question, the follow up to is, do you get a lot of that where you just get these last minute calls to come in and just do?
Yeah, I love the one-offs, the ones that are spontaneous, that are fast, that there's very little time to rehearse. It's exciting. It gets your adrenaline going. So I do quite a few of them, galas, awards ceremonies. And for me, the most important part is just being prepared for everything ahead of time. Like, you learn very quickly that you talk to each of the artists and they say, I need 2 microphones. I need 3 microphones. And instead of having, the biggest group said they need 3, so I'll have 3, I have 6 because inevitably someone's going to be like, oh, can I get one more of this? Or, oh, did I forget to tell you I was bringing a guitar player? So, for me, it's always, being as prepared as possible and then having far more spares than you think you need.
Right.
It's like the less time you have in the theater, the more time you need beforehand to be ready.
Oh, yeah. So that's true. I think amongst a couple of the disciplines. Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to be as prepared as you can outside because you never know what's going to happen once you hit the ground running on the inside.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about let's go back to high school cricket.
Okay.
What did high school cricket want to be when she grew up?
I wanted to be I was going to be a physics major. I wanted to be an astrophysicist.
Okay. All right.
And work for like NASA or JPL.
Yeah.
So I took a left turn when I hit college, but I transferred to a new high school that I didn't know anyone in, and my mom said to me, the best way to meet people is to join the play, like get a part in the play. You'll meet a lot of people that way. I think later in life she wondered if maybe that was a bad suggestion. She definitely didn't mean for it to be a career. But I fell in love with being backstage, and I was I acted once and knew that I'm not an actor. I loved being backstage. I didn't want to go on stage. Yeah. So I became the assistant to the assistant stage manager and then worked my way up so that by my senior year I was stage managing, and fell in love with it. So when I went to college for physics, but I got my work study in the theater. And then about, I guess it was like the end of my first year, beginning of my second year, I was like, ooh, I think I might be a theater major. And it was like, I liked physics, but I loved theater.
Got it. Now, did you switch schools when you were in college? Where did you go?
I went to Colorado College, which is a liberal arts school on the block plan, which really fit me very well. Yeah. So I stayed there. I just transferred to the theater department. And I did a lot of stage management, some master electrician work. I sewed buttons in the costume shop. I really can't sew, so buttons was all they would let me do. But I tried a little bit of everything. And came out into the real world determined to be a stage manager. Oh, okay. Yeah. And after doing that for a couple of years, I was like, I'm not a stage manager. So I went back to grad school and got a master's degree in sound design.
And where did you go to grad school?
CalArts.
Oh, okay. So now tell me what made you choose CalArts? What was it about them that was intriguing?
You know what? I had an amazing conversation with John Gottlieb, who's the head of the sound program there. I love the way he talked. I love the way he talked about sound and design. I loved the kind of work that CalArts did. They asked you to push boundaries and to challenge yourself. Don't just do what the script tells you to do. Push beyond it, find the emotion, find the story, and use design as a real tool to help tell a story, as opposed to just something that's transition music layered in there to keep the audience busy, right. That they, and so I just fell in love with what they had to offer. So
got it. And how do you feel? A lot of us come from different backgrounds and different educational backgrounds, and we've talked to designers who have college degrees. We've talked to some who started doing what they were doing right out of high school, and it doesn't seem that there's no right or wrong way to get to where you want to go. I guess my question for you is, how do you feel that either your CalArts years or the years prior to that, how do you feel that they prepared you for where you ultimately decided to go?
So my undergrad degree, what was amazing about that is because it was liberal arts, I didn't just study theater. So I took math classes, I took physics classes, I took game theory, I took French, I took literature, and they really gave me a wonderful sense of the world I was living in, and gave me the ability to kind of look at the world in different ways, which I think is really valuable as a theater artist and a designer, to have this kind of broad sense of what the world is. And then I went to CalArts, where not only did I delve into kind of like the technical, how to plug it all in, but I also got to work very closely with a lot of other designers and directors and learn how to communicate with them, because our world is very visual and I'm not a visual designer. But the people I work with are all visual. So we really learned how to talk about sound in a visual way, talk about it in a way that a director and other designers understand. And that was incredibly valuable. I took a class with Chris Barreca that, each class you read the script and built a model, read the script, build a model. I can't build models. I'm not a visual designer. I don't have any idea what the set should look like, but bless Chris Hearts, I built a model every week and I brought it in. But the class was so valuable because I listened to how all the other designers talked about the play. And we got to really delve into how to take a play apart and talk about it. And that became invaluable to me. And I say it's the best class that I hated the most. Like, I hated every second, but I learned so much from it because I got to really learn how to talk about design. And that's what gets you hired. That's what makes directors want to work with you, because you can talk their language. They don't have to understand sound and decibels and speakers and mixers. They don't have to understand any of that. Just talk to me about the play, talk to me about story, talk to me about plot. I'll turn it into sound.
Right.
But I would definitely say that, grad school isn't the only route to do that. And I chose to go to grad school because I wasn't getting hired for the kind of work I wanted to do. So grad school was a way to get the resume, to get people to hire me. If you come out of high school or you come out of college and you're getting the jobs you want, then you don't need that next level necessarily. So.
I think it's interesting you talk about the class you hated the most, that you got the most out of, right? I think we all, I think all of us have somewhere in our past either a class or a teacher. It's like there were 2 or 3 teachers that back in my past that I realize now what they were doing, but at the time I was not full of appreciation.
It's like, please don't make me build another model.
I have circled back to several of them going, I need to apologize.
Right.
Okay, we're going to send you away for a little bit, and we're going to meet Julie, and then all of us are going to come back together and talk.
Great.
Okay, awesome. So let's bring on Julie Ferrin.
Oh, hello.
Hello. How you doing today?
Good. I'm a little nervous.
Okay, it's okay. there's like only 5 or 6 million people watching. It's fine.
Oh, geez.
So, hey, I wanted to ask you the first thing that I really wanted to ask you is you decided at some point, and I'm asking this out of genuine curiosity because I don't know the story. You decided at some point that you wanted to run your own company, your own sound company.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about sort of what was behind that decision and what inspired you to do that?
Well, it was at the time I was working at the La Mirada Theater as the head audio technician, and I was kind of not happy, kind of looking to do other things, break out. And I had worked numerous places before, so I had a lot of people. And one of my mentors, Dave Fishbein from Apex Audio, was like, Julie, if you started your own company, the business will come. And I'm like, really? Like, seriously? He's like, oh yeah. Once people find out that you got a sound system and you're, your own company, it will happen. And so I definitely took a leap of faith in August of 2001 and did that. Quit working full time, quit all that, benefits and salary checks, and decided, this is what I really love to do, and this is what I need to do, and I got to try it, is what the thing was. So, yeah, I can't believe it. I've never looked back. It was the best thing I ever did.
That is awesome. Okay, we're going to circle back to Dave in just a bit. So what is it about? Is there a moment way back in the day when you realized this is what I really want to do? What was that moment like for you? Or was it something that happened over time?
No, it happened in Omaha, Nebraska when I was probably 17. Okay. I was kind of like Cricket said, playing guitar and singing with a friend of mine, and we were a little duet, and we were playing clubs and singing. And I wasn't horrible, but I wasn't that great. And one day we played this Howard Street Tavern, and the sound guy came up and he put microphones on us, on our guitars and our vocals. And I'm like, what is this? He goes, well, you need to be heard, right? And I go, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to be heard. I had never seen that before. So he took me back to the console and showed me my channel and my guitar, my vocal channel. And I was just fascinated. I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I need to be. I need to be on the other end of the microphone, not on that front side. So yeah, like Chris said, I don't want to be the talent. I want to be the backstage. So yeah, I walked into a recording studio again in Omaha and said, hey, I want to know what a sound engineer does. And, can I talk to somebody? This engineer was like, wow, you got a lot of guts coming in here, lady.
Right.
And he took me all through the recording studio and saw the piano room and the vocal booth. It was fascinating to me. And I came home and told my parents, hey, I'm going to be a sound engineer. And that was it. I was so focused. And, this is obviously before the days of the internet. And I would get magazines, and at the back of the magazines, they would have recording studios. And I would find schools and all kinds of info. So I moved. It was either LA or New York. And coming from Nebraska, I didn't want any more snow. So I went to LA and moved out here, went to Golden West College, and that was it.
Okay, so what I love about that is that, there's the old saying that if you never ask, the answer is always no, right? And there are so many students out there that their biggest question is, how do I do this? How do I start? What's my first step? That sort of thing. And I think just the chutzpah of walking into a recording studio and going, what is all this? I want to know.
I know.
Well, I think there's this natural sort of ingrained fear that, somebody's going to, tell you to go away or, whatever.
Rejection.
There's certainly that possibility.
Sure.
But I think what I've found over the years is that so many people in this in this industry that do what we do love doing what we do, and we like talking about it, and we like showing it to other people too. So it's kind of thing to go, oh, this is cool. Have you not seen this? This is awesome. Look at what it does.
Yeah, it's like toys. Oh, toys.
Right. But, and I think that's such a hugely powerful lesson for students to hear. It's just like, just ask, find a recording studio, find a designer, find a theater, find a whatever, email, call, write, show up in person, that's,
yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned Dave Fishbein. I knew Dave and Miss Dave. And so you said that he had mentored you. What was the context of that mentorship? What did he provide for you?
Just that knowledge of what he had been through. And he started Apex Audio after being with other companies, and that vision of, I hate to say it, but if you build it, they will come. And I was like, wow, and it was so true. And he just was always there. And he would tell me, you could go buy a Shure SM57 anywhere. Why do you come to me? And I'm like, I don't know, Dave, because I like you. And he goes, no, because the customer service is there. If that microphone breaks down or does something, I will fix it for you. You buy something from somebody else and, they're done. They're like, I got your money, it's whatever. And literally the first big set of speakers I bought were some powered E8Ws. And I was doing a show, with my business, all the gear is mine. And it was an outdoor show, and about an hour and a half before show, a speaker blew, and it was a powered speaker. So internally the amplifier blew. And I knew that he had those speakers at his shop. And I called him and I told him what happened. He literally was there probably within 45 minutes carrying this big amp pack across. He must have had to go like 2 football fields to get to me. And he put it in and made sure it was working before the show opened. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, right there is the kind of person I want to be. If you do something and you say something, then you back it up all the way. Yeah. I'm sure his wife and kids were expecting him for dinner. It was a Friday night, but he's like, no, my customer needs me. And that's the attitude I took with my business, that I will go above and beyond the call of duty to deliver the product.
Yeah. So awesome. Awesome.
He's a great guy.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's bring Cricket back in, because I have some questions for both of you guys. All right. So I wanted to talk, because I know that both of you have done a little bit of traveling for work and pleasure, and worked in a variety of venues. So I wanted to let's start with Julie. So you've done some work with Tuacahn, you've done some touring. Can you tell us what it's like to essentially try to mount a design for a space that you maybe have never been in? Where do you start with something like that?
Oh, geez. What is the inventory? What do they have?
Yeah.
What don't they have? Tuacahn is brilliant. They've got everything under the sun.
Right.
They're very unique in what they've had to build there in that space. And the orchestra is in its own little room, building, air conditioned, and to the side. So there's, all kinds of video stuff. So I just always try to get their inventory, talk to the A1, the A2, how do you do things? What works, what doesn't work, what would you like to see improved upon, and try to help them, and help me get to the design that I want in that space.
Got it. And how about you, Cricket?
Well, I mean, definitely the same thing, like use the resources that they have. And that includes the personnel in the space. It's like, your theater best. Tell me what works, tell me what doesn't, and how can I help, like what needs to be brought in, Yeah.
So, Cricket, you had an interesting situation where you had done the sound design for Bengal Tiger at Baghdad Zoo here in Los Angeles, and then that transferred to New York. What kind of changes were there between those two different productions?
There were actually 3 productions, and they were all super unique. So we started at the Kirk Douglas Theater, which is 250 seats, and it's very narrow, like long and skinny. Then we went to the Mark Taper Forum, which is 750 seats that's like huge and round and very, very, very wide. Then we went to Broadway, which was 1,300 seats, with balconies and like very traditional house there. Yeah. So for me, the system changed dramatically each time we went, but the aesthetic of what I was going for didn't change. So it was kind of figuring out how to adapt that. And what I discovered was that I really love surrounds. I didn't have a lot of surrounds in the Kirk Douglas because they're so narrow. And once we went to the taper, where they've got, 16 speakers all the way around the back of the house, like I broke my design out and really used those. So then when we go to the Richard Rodgers and everything was vertical, it was like, how do I get that same expansive feel in a house that's vertical instead of around? So there was a lot of that, like, and my co-designer on Broadway, Nevin, was like, why do you need so many channels of surrounds? I'm like, trust me, we do. We do. But for me, aesthetically on Bengal Tiger, I wanted a lot of the underscoring to come from upstage, because the underscoring was all about the emotions of the characters, and it shifted and changed as different characters entered and exited. So for me, it was really important that that sound come from the stage and come from the characters. And so each of those stages were very unique and had different sizes I had to cover coming from way upstage. So where I put the offstage speakers and how those grew and changed was really kind of dramatic. Like the Kirk Douglas I could do with 2 little speakers hidden upstage, covered the whole house just fine. In the taper, it became a series of speakers upstage behind the backdrop that shot out to cover the whole thing. When we got to Broadway, the scenic design changed, and that backdrop now flew out for the final scene. So I couldn't have a line of speakers sitting on the track because they'd be visible when the backdrop went away. So the scenic designer was great and worked with us and actually built holes into the back wall that we mounted the speakers in. So I had the system until they flew out for the final scene, and then I didn't have them anymore because they were in the air. But so it was a lot of fun.
So now, Julie, how do you deal with because you did a tour with Peter Pan, is that correct?
Yes, 2 tours of Peter Pan. Yeah,
got it. Okay, so when you're going from venue to venue, what are the types of things that you can do? Because there's let me provide a little context for my question, I guess. So the show, you come up with an initial design in the first theater that you're in, and everyone is happy with that sound. Everyone's like, great, this is the show. We're going to travel this show to 20 different theaters, none of which bear any similarity in makeup. Yeah, to Cricket's point earlier of, big to tall and everything else. What are the types of things that you can do to try to preserve the integrity of what you come up with for the first venue that everyone likes?
The biggest part with that is your speaker system, I believe. And when I did the Peter Pan of 2004, again, the business was just starting out, and I got backing from Harman, and I went with the line array system. And of course, back then that was like, woo, that was a new thing. And wow, what are we going to do? And I really feel that gave me the tool I needed to get the best sound for every theater. Because, some places they didn't have chain motor points, so we would have to ground stack. Well, at least it was still my same speaker system, and I knew how it would perform and what it would do and how it was going to sound. So I really think that helped me, because we had, a lot of people use sound towers, and that just wasn't part of the game plan with the set designer, lighting designer. Everyone was like, oh, hell no, that's not happening. So you have to kind of get approval from many departments with your gear choice. And even when we did ground stack, they wanted to be like, well, we don't want to see anything and it's going to look ugly. So they put some like sprinkled fairies in front of them. And I'm like, great, that's perfect. So, but everything else I can control. My console, my mics, everything else is going to be the same. The mix is going to be the same, but the speakers and how they're going to behave in a different venue every week is key. That was key to me. So.
Got it. The, there's, I don't think there's a set designer alive that loves seeing a speaker at all, ever. Many of them don't like seing lights.
Yes.
But there is not a single one out there that likes seeing a speaker.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got 3 students that we would like to introduce you guys to. They have some questions for you. And so we're going to introduce our first student. Let's go ahead and bring her in. Where is Z? Is she there? There we go. Hey there. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Excellent. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then let's find out what your question is for these 2 sound designers.
Of course. So my name is Zainab Ganley, but everyone calls me Z, so you can go ahead and call me that. I'm a sophomore at Claremont High School, which is in Claremont, California. And I've been working at my school theater for about 2 years now.
Cool. And what's your question?
So my question is, I think the easiest way to ask my question is to kind of explain my scenario in a little bit of a way. So I worked on this production, and we had a set that was more of just a background. And then every time they changed where they were in the show, they would bring in like a table or something like that. So for example, they brought in a table and a chair, and they said, okay, by the way, I was the sound designer for this show. And they said, okay, we're in a police station right now. Make it sound like a police station. Make it so everyone in the audience knows that table is a police station. I was like, okay.
What does a police station sound like?
Yeah, I'm like, I've never really been inside a police station for that long. I don't know how to make it sound like that. And so my problem was finding a way to make it sound like a police station without being overwhelmed by all of the sound. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to indicate with sound that it is a police station, but I didn't want to be overwhelming and just like have constant sirens going, because at the same time that doesn't fit either.
Yes.
So yeah, what's the best way to create a soundscape without being overwhelming?
I can start if you want, Julie. I love doing soundscapes. I love doing stuff like this. So I have a couple of tricks. When the scene very first starts, I build all of my soundscapes in layers so that each one is individually controlled. I use QLab for playback, so I can play back many, many different things. So when the scene first starts, I have lots of tracks running, and it's very dense, and it's a little bit louder. And then after about 10 seconds, I let things start to drift away so that only a couple of bass things are left through the scene, but I've given it a really good established, like, here we are. And then I let it drift down. And then you work with the director and you find points in the script, like the actor has to make a long cross to the filing cabinet, or there's a break in the dialogue where you can puncture, put a punctuation in, like you hear a police car pull up, or you hear a phone ring, or you hear, footsteps in a hallway, or a jail door, whatever the environment is. But it's something that's quick and it's punctuating, and it reminds the audience that the sound's still there. And, so that this bed, the longer the bed goes, the easier it is to ignore. So then you have these occasional kind of punctuations that come in the breaks of the dialogue to help remind the audience where they are and what's going on, that there's a world outside that's happening. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, thank you.
How about you, Julie?
I would only add to that at that point, it would be good to have special effects speakers.
Yes.
Upstage, left, right, down, left, right, center, anywhere to like Kicker says, pop those punctuation sound effects. Oh, this is coming from here. Oh, now we know the jails are to stage left because I heard jail noise over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, any of that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I always say, go big and let the director pull you back. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, but again, it's a fine line, but like exactly what Cricket's saying, pull it under during the dialogue, and if there's a break or a long cross the filing machine, you can go a little crazy, but directors will always tell you to stop, but
Oh yes, they will.
yeah, so,
A nice balance.
I say go for it until they reel you in.
So I actually have a follow-up jumping off of Z's question. So where do you go to find, so there's a jail cell, there's a car pulling up, there's a door closing, there's people typing. Where do you find stuff like that?
I mean, I have a hard drive full of a large collection. I went out right after grad school and kind of bought the BBC collection and the Sound Ideas collection that were kind of very expensive investments. But what's nice is that the world has kind of shifted. iTunes, right? iTunes and the idea of buying something track by track has kind of come up. So I love a website called Sound Dogs. They have a huge collection, including a lot of the Sound Ideas and the BBC and the big known collections, but you can buy them track by track. So you don't have to spend $2,000 and buy the whole collection. You can spend $4 and buy the one sound you need. So
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Z.
Of course. Thank you so much for answering my question and having me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I love what you guys were talking about, that the two ideas. The thing that I think is cool, what you were talking about, Cricket, is starting sort of bigger, it's cinematic. It's almost like an establishing shot, right? You do the wide shot, and then as you start to narrow in on the detail, you start peeling back a little bit.
absolutely.
And then being able to send those different sounds off to point sourced speakers. And hopefully we have a chance to get a little into the details about digital and point sourcing and all of that in just a little bit. But that to me, that allows you to completely create a world. That's super cool. All right. So let's go ahead and bring in our next student. Well, let's welcome Luke.
Hello.
Hey, Luke.
Hi, Luke.
Hi.
All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself and then tell us.
So I'm Luke. I go to Jesuit High School in Portland. I'm a junior and I've done tech since freshman year.
Okay.
Awesome. And what's your question?
So a bit of context. For our last show, we did Something Rotten, and the Act 1 finale is Bottom's Gonna Be on Top. And it's a song where there's a lot of characters that come in and then come out really fast, especially towards the end, where there's just a bunch of entrances and exits. So I used a bunch of presets where I could just hit the next button and it would all be taken care of by the board, which we have an XI Expression 3. So it took care of all of that. And I had it so that it would turn on the mic and then it would turn up the volume for each mic that we wanted. And so I was wondering, if you would use it, what parts of this channel would you control by the presets? Would you control the EQ, the volume, on, off, stuff like that?
All of it.
I was like, Julie, I'll let you take that one.
Go over, Julie.
I want to control everything. Yeah, I mean, can the console accommodate all that? Can it handle all those?
Yeah, you can turn on and off various things. So you could have everything off, everything on.
Yeah.
And then you can decide which part of it is controlled by the board.
Yeah, I like to control everything. I like it because I want everything in my scenes to track through. All my EQ settings, my compression, anything that I'm doing to that channel, I want to be able to map through every cue. So that's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah, I typically only use scenes to either change DCAs or turn mics on and off. I'll leave, you can do it either way, that you leave all the faders up and they turn on and off, or you can have the fader, like leave them all on and pop the faders up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But like Julie, something like EQ, I want to set the EQ once and have it track through the show. And if a mic is out of placement and I adjust that EQ, I don't want it to change back next time I take a scene.
Right.
So I make sure that those kind of track. But I let, which mics are on which DCAs and which ones are on and off, change. So.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Very cool.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay, so I have to ask. I'm gonna show my complete and total audio ignorance because where I work, DCA is a theme park. So what is a DCA for those of us who don't know?
Julie, what does it stand for? Digital
controlled amplitude.
There you go.
Yeah, amplifier. Digital controlled amplifier.
And what does it do?
It is a form, I will say, of subgrouping, like in you lighting people's world, where you can assign X amount of channels to one DCA and control all of them that way. Like I like to, some shows, I might put all my men's chorus on one, all my women's chorus on one. And if they're not in that scene, like Craig was saying, you just mute those individual channels over to the side. But my guys and girls chorus still comes up together. So it's a form of subgrouping, and even though those individual faders are all be at 0 at nominal. If I bring it up to like say a -10, then they're all basically relative to -10. Sorry, that's probably too technical.
It's too technical for me, but I'm sure there's some people watching that are just like, oh yeah, I get it.
It's a way to take a show with 30 microphones and make them be able to control them with your kind
with like 12 fingers.
So
yeah, I mean, we did ragtime, and I think we had 54 microphones, but everything came down to 12 DCAs.
Yeah.
So it's a way of you can't obviously mix 56 channels, and
you don't have enough hands.
You got to bust it down to make it more manageable.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, cool. So let's go ahead and move to our. I see. This is the thing. When I talk to my audio brethren, I leave the conversation either feeling smarter because I've learned something, or dumber because I just Okay, so let's go ahead and meet Soul. Let's go ahead and bring her in. Hey there.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Soul, I think you're muted. It's okay.
I'm so
it's
sorry.
An audio show. Okay.
Oh, that was a good trick.
I do know one audio term, and it's muting. Okay, so let's, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what your question is.
So I'm Soul. I go to Eunice in New York. And mostly I've been working as a director in productions and in like theater class. But I was told by a teacher, to be a good director, you have to know a little bit about everything, right? And I've had some experience with lighting, but not so much with sound, right? And we recently did a production and where we had a ensemble where during a song, they each had their own individual lines. And so my main question for you guys is how do you go about choosing which ensemble character gets to be mic'd? Because I know at my school we don't have enough mics, to mic, let's say 20 people. So how do you pick and choose best and to best capture all the audio needed, right?
Yep.
Inventory.
Inventory. I mean, I think it's a conversation with the music director as well. You want the stronger voices. You want to make sure that you have all the different parts of the harmony represented in your mics, because it would be really sad if none of the sopranos had a microphone. You'd be missing a chunk of the harmony. But you could also look at, if you don't have enough wireless mics, maybe you've got a foot mic or a shotgun in your inventory that you could put a foot mic on the stage, and anyone who's got one line in this big ensemble piece could be blocked to stand by a foot mic. So then that foot mic can cover the 5 or 6 people who don't have mics. You just always step them to that. I heard a story that a lot of the chorus line, the original chorus line blocking, the way they stepped forward was because the original chorus line didn't have wireless mics. So they were actually stepping down to put themselves in front of the mics better. Mm-hmm. So that's actually where a lot of the choreography came from, is because they were getting closer to the mics that were available at the time. So that might be a trick. Or
you can also, if the wireless you do have is, again, block an actor to a person that has a mic, and it's like sing into their mic. I've done that numerous times because of lack of inventory.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering. And thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
No
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I love that idea. Go over to that person.
I know.
Go sing into his cheek.
Yeah, go sing into his head.
All right, so I'm sort of struck by the fact that out of the 3 students we have, that 2 are young women. And it sort of flashed me back to a few months ago before all this craziness started. I went to the Parnelli Awards at the Anaheim Hilton Convention Center as part of, I think it was NAMM. And they were providing an award to Carrie Keys, who's a member of an organization called Women in Sound. And Carrie Keys is front house engineer for Pearl Jam and has been for a gajillion years. And so I was wondering, because she had some fascinating stories to tell about working in rock and roll as a female leading male crew members. I was wondering if you guys had any observations on the last 15 or 20 years being in your field and how that might have changed over the last 20 years, or has it?
I mean, I find it's changed a lot.
Okay.
I think there are more and more women in sound every day. There are more and more women coming out of college that are doing this. And so seeing them in the workplace, seeing them on your crews is much more commonplace. And the crews I'm working with, they worked with women in college. They worked with, they aren't as surprised or unnerved by having a woman leading them or on the crew with them. So, I was very fortunate to have a lot of fantastic male mentors growing up that were very supportive of me and my career. So it kind of didn't occur to me that women don't do what we do. But I certainly had my fair share of times where, I walked into a house and I went out with a band once and, to do a show in a couple of different clubs, and I walked up to the console and started talking to the house guy and was like, hey, I have their in-ears. If you want to take it down to the monitor mixer, I'd love to have a conversation. Like, I'd love to get some stuff set up. I'd love to get, on the console, I'd love to get, have a conversation with the monitor mixer, because I can give him a base starting place for each singer, because I know what they want, whatever. And I'm talking to the guy and he's like, okay. And he's like, well, that's all really nice, but like, I think it's best if we just wait till the sound guy shows up. And I smiled and was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm the sound guy.
You should have led with that, Cricket. You just should have, hi, I'm the sound guy.
And he's like, I'm so sorry. I thought you were the stage manager. I was like, oh, no, I'm the sound guy.
Well, you wanted to be a stage manager.
And at that point, he was very, apologetic. And I was like, don't worry about it. But can I get behind the console now?
Yeah.
So I've certainly had my fair share of that. But my experience is that most of the people are very kind of gracious once they realize who I am.
Well, yeah, and I'm wondering if it's maybe different on the theater side, where there tends to be a little bit more openness and inclusion. If it's different in the corporate world or in rock and roll. How about you, Julie?
Yeah, I've pretty much only done theater professionally and being on tour for a number of years. Of course, I was the head, and then I was the designer, and I'm also the vendor. And I'd never wanted that to get out to people, because it just, I don't know, it's like a conflict of interest or something. But a couple people would find out and they're like, dude, that's really cool. And I'm like, thank you. But one time I think it was like the head sound came up. We were, interfacing when you first get there for load in, and he introduced me to somebody else, and he goes, oh, and by the way, this is the A1, and she really knows her stuff. I was like, oh, because what does that have to do with anything?
That sounds like a compliment.
Like, I can be a girl and smart. Wow, what a concept. So, but I never really, I mean, all the years of touring, you know, maybe a few houses where my A2 was a guy, so we would play good cop, bad cop. You know, I'd be like, oh, okay, Johnny, the guys don't want to have me tell them what to do, so you're going to tell them what to do, and I'll just be over here. So, you know,
I
always feel like, you know, I never ask anyone to do anything I won't do, and kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
You know, how I'm like, work with me for 4 hours, and then tell me I'm an idiot. But at least give me 4 hours.
And if you do think I'm an idiot, please base that on my skill,
yeah,
and nothing else.
I was always able to win them over.
Good. I'm looking forward to the day when conversations like this don't need to be had, but
I'm definitely the kill 'em with kindness, though.
Yeah,
I am good at what I do, and you will figure that out eventually.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
right. Until you do.
You will come around to my side. One way or the other, it's just going to happen.
I'm good at it.
Awesome. All right. So before we meet our educators, I wanted to remind all of our viewers that if you guys have any questions for Julie or Cricket, just post those in the comments over there, along with your first name and where you're from, and we'll get to those towards the end after the teachers. So let's meet our teachers. Who is first up? We have Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. So you're from the University of Wisconsin.
I am, yes. The Platteville version of it, though. So it's a very, very tiny school.
That's
in Madison.
Well, welcome. What question do you have for Julie and for Cricket?
I actually have a couple.
Excellent.
Two. Literally two.
Okay, great.
So my strong suit is lighting design. That's where my education came from. Casey. So I have MFA in design, and among my weaker points of education are audio and sound design specifically. So I have one based on the sort of the design side, and then one more on the sort of equipment side. Okay. So first of all, in the lighting world, you know, we have AutoCAD, Vectorworks, Lightright, to keep track of our queuing and our all the instruments we're using and all of that. Is there something similar that you need to use in the audio world? And then along with that idea, how do you manage your cue placement as far as like a paperwork standpoint? And how do you keep track of that? Or does it need to be tracked on paper?
Yeah.
And then kind of akin to that is what you touched on a little bit, Cricket, in your intro was script analysis and how you really dig into the script and get those more nuanced moments that need to actually speak to the story that's being told, and not so much the sound effects or the soundscape, but to draw the audience more into the story, much like the point of lighting is to do as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break these down because these are all good questions. Right?
That's a lot there.
So let's start. No, we're here to have a conversation, right? Yeah. What else are we going to do? So let's start with because I'm curious about this as well. About the software side or apps or computer programs. Is there anything that you guys typically use, either on the design side or the sort of the file management or whatever you want to call it side that helps you with your jobs?
So for system drafting, Vectorworks is, or AutoCAD or any of those things are very standard. And I admit I'm a horrible drafter and I just pay other people to do that for me because I'm really bad at it. I've started doing a lot of my kind of system diagram or layouts. I'm doing more and more in Google Docs and like a Google spreadsheet because then I can share it with the engineer, I can share it with the A2, I can share it with the crew. So during load in, if the A2 changes a patch, he can change it in the Google Doc and the A1 will know immediately that it's happened, or I'll know it's happened. So we're all literally on the same page. But I think there may be better tracking out there. It's just what I find is really accessible, and you can have it on your phone or an iPad or your computer, so if your crew's out working, they can have it on their phone right there with them, which everyone's got in their pocket anyway. For cue sheets and file, kind of that, I have two methods that I kind of bounce back and forth between. I have a FileMaker template that I use for my cue sheets that will track. There's the designer layout and the stage manager layout. So the stage manager can see the cue name, the description, and the placement, page number and placement. On my side, I've got a bigger section that I can include notes and routing and other descriptive things I need to know. So another thing that has come out very recently is called Cue List, and it's an online web-based application that you can upload your script to and share it with the entire design team. So the entire design team can be working online on the same script. So when the lighting designer moves their cue up 2 lines, it immediately refreshes on my screen, and I can move it up 2 lines to match. And then the stage manager also has it open, and he or she knows to call it in a new place. I don't have to get on headset. We don't have to have a conversation about it. I don't have to miss something because lighting's on a different comm channel. I can see it all. It works best when the entire design team's using that application. But I found it, especially with one-offs, that are changing constantly, it's really handy to have, because I can change it and the stage manager could be running off dealing with something else, but next time they sit down, their script has changed. They know that the cue is moved. I don't have to worry about chasing them down and telling them. So
cool. How about you, Julie?
I use mostly Excel just to created my own like input lists and assignment routing, all that kind of stuff, so that I can hand out to the crew to do load in. Like the kick drum gets this mic, it's plugged into this channel with this stand, and so on.
Got it.
Yeah.
So question, just a quick follow-up here. With when you talk about something like AutoCAD or Vectorworks, is that for is looking at this from the lighting side? So in lighting, it's a visual representation of physically where things go. And we may typically do interconnect diagrams and everything else in something else. Do you guys typically draw that sort of stuff out as well, like single lines, system drawing type things with Vectorworks or AutoCAD?
I'm really bad about doing one-line drawings.
Well,
I know I'm supposed to. I personally am really bad about it. I think my Google Doc, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet, makes sense. So I don't tend to, but again, I hate drafting. So I'm going to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the ground plan and the section, and then I'm going to turn the Vectorworks off because it doesn't like me.
That is a really great point, though, because there are, you go through programs and they'll tell you this is how you do everything and this is how you're supposed to do everything. And then there's a little bit of the real world, but then there's what does everybody else in the real world use and what is their expectation? What is their, when a person is standing on stage and they're at the kick drum, they don't need to be rifling through a bunch of drawings, right? What they want is something that's a quick and easy reference that tells them what mic to use.
Yes.
So, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't use any of those drawings, but again, most places I go to have a fixed sound system. And
sure.
I can't change it if I wanted to. There's no budget to change it. The production manager is not going to let me go tear this system down and put a new one up.
Right.
Okay. And if I'm working in a Lort house with someone who's been there forever, they know how their system's plugged in. I'm not going to tell them to unplug it and plug it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that will get you ushered out the door. All right, so Dawn, I'm sorry. Remember, what was your next question again?
Oh, well, my second one might spark a great expanse of knowledge also. Basically, my equipment room for audio, and well, basically any equipment room really, but my audio equipment room is always a wreck. And we take the time at the end of the semester, or maybe in a moment where we have some downtime at the school, and I have big dreams and goals of cleaning it out and organizing it and putting it back together, and it just never happens. So really, what's really a good practical way to keep all of our gear neat and tidy and, you know, stored nicely so we can find what we're looking for when we're in the heat of the moment of a load in or the heat of the moment of a problem. We don't have to go rifling through all this junk in our storeroom, you know, and we're taking time because we can't find it.
Oh my God, hire me or I'll do it for free. I love to organize everything because it makes me furious when you can't find things.
Yes, it does.
My shop is so incredibly organized. People are like,
I would imagine.
What are you, nuts? And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Come to Blackville.
Yeah, we like build 2x4s or like a 2x6 and put the dowel pegs in it on an angle and all the cable goes there. It's all labeled, you know, mic cable, speaker cable, power cable, everything. And then, you know, we got the big black cabinets with P-Touch labels everywhere, what mic is in here, where it is, the shelf, everything. And then it keeps it safe from dust and everything else that's maybe flying around. So yeah, you got to be organized. You got to get that stuff. You know, even like the Husky toolboxes, you know, are good. Some of the larger drawers can hold microphones or direct boxes, things like that. But you got to have it labeled and organized.
Great.
And all my microphones are in alphabetical order.
Wow.
Right now.
And the most important thing I find when it breaks, take it out of the closet.
Yes.
Do not put it back in the closet to discover it later. The number of times that I have pulled out a mic and plugged it in and someone will be like, oh, that one's broken. I'm like, then why is it here?
Yes.
We have the bucket of shame for that. All of our broken stuff goes in the bucket of shame.
And then you have the end of the year, you know, class and teach the kids to solder and open up that direct box and find out what's wrong. Might just be something got unplugged or, you know, something simple, but it's a learning experience. When it breaks, you got to fix it. So how do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thank you.
Very cool. Awesome. Did we answer all your questions, Dawn?
You got it all. Yep, that was perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, the going to the wall of cable and bringing down some DMX and plugging it in and going, why is this is not working? Why is this hanging? Your frustration. glad everyone experiences that level of frustration, that it's not just lighting designers. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in our next educator. She's got a question for us. Hello, Tay.
Hi.
Hey, introduce yourself and tell us what your question is.
Awesome. I'm Tay Gendro. I work out of California in Claremont. I actually teach for an ROP program where I work at 2 different high schools where I'm involved with between 10 to 12 shows a year, juggling all kinds of different places. And so my question for you guys was, I flip back and forth between technology that's really old and technology that's new. And I'm prepping my kids to, you know, adapt to where they need to go. So what best practices could you give me for, like, you know, marking scripts or adapting to, you know, boards where you don't have scenes to program what's going on?
Let's see. Best practices. I mean, things that I think are very valuable for students to get hired. Knowing how to program QLab. My assistants, my engineers, I all want them to have that knowledge. It's become the industry standard, and it's something that they really should get their hands on and be comfortable with. Knowing, I mean, every console is different and every console is laid out different, but there are basic concepts that say the same. The idea of being able to trace a signal flow. Where does the signal start and where does it go through the process and where does it come out? So that the troubleshooting is there, because every console is going to have their buttons in different places, and the labels, they're going to be called, whether it's called a bus or a matrix or a aux or a whatever. But the idea of the sound goes from here to there and comes out and what happens along those ways, so that when the sound isn't coming out, you know where to go, if that makes sense.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there are very, kind of, the analog consoles are a great way to get started in that, because you see every knob and every button is visible on every channel. So it's very easy to find what button's out of place or what knob is turned the wrong way. Whereas the digital ones, everything becomes layered and hidden. And so starting with those analog consoles and really having an understanding of how the sound moves through the console and what happens along the way will help you when you get to the digital consoles. You'll start knowing where to find the compressors or where to find the limiters or where to find the EQ and what each of those does and why you want them, Yeah.
Is it fair to say, I want to ask a follow-up of both of you guys. Is it fair to say that if you're a student and you're learning on an analog console, that sort of foundational information is transferable to a degree in a digital console? The digital console is a more advanced, complicated version of analog. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I learned something.
It's zeros and ones instead of analog sound, but ultimately the pathways are the same.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
With digital, you have built-in compressors and limiters and sound effects, reverb. Sorry, not sound effects, reverb. Where with analog, that would all be a separate piece of equipment.
Yeah.
That you would have to then patch, out of the channel into the compressor, back out of the compressor, back into the console. So the digital boards replace a ton of equipment, and all you do now is hit a button and say, boom, there's my compressor, and it's really good. And I was the last dinosaur analog person to be drug up from the depths of the 80s. So yeah, I had quite the learning curve, but now that now I can't imagine how could you ever do these shows without a digital console. It's insane.
It's like, how did we do that?
Yeah. Even the big shows, you're I've engineered some big shows, and I'm there was a couple times I'm throwing up a white flag, dude. I need somebody to help me. I can't run all the mics and the orchestra and 100 sound effects. Can we just get somebody to run sound effects? And
the first show I ever mixed, I had pencils of different lengths, and my pencils became my DCAs, because it's I can't make 10 faders move simultaneously, but this pencil can.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, cool. Tay, did that answer your question?
It did, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The reason I ask the question about the analog to digital is because if you go way back in the lighting world, there might be some vague similarities between what a giant wall dimmer cabinet could do, where you're pulling levers down.
Yes.
Right? It's okay, so yeah, you've got individual channels, and you've got the ability to do a group, but not without a 2x4, right? So that's. And we jumped from sort of ish analog to digital pretty quickly and pretty early. Although I do remember the first digital lighting console I worked on, you saved to cassette tape.
Oh wow!
Right? Seems super smart, super stable, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly, first of all, the transition from analog to digital happened. I mean, obviously across a decade or so, but it seemed like it seemed much faster than that. That it was all of a sudden we're in this whole new era.
My first year of grad school, which was 2000, John Gottlieb rolled in a full-size suitcase, big enough you have to check it, doesn't fit in the overhead, rolls it in and was like, it's amazing, this technology now. I have a full recording studio in a suitcase. Isn't this amazing?
Yeah.
Like, this suitcase will let me set up a full recording.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I have that much power in this now.
Right.
You know? Now it's in my back pocket.
Right. I was reading an interview years ago with Butch Vig, the drummer and one of the producers for the band Garbage. And it was, I think it was regarding their first album. And he was saying something about I think he said at the time there was like 256 channels is what they were dealing with. And I'm like, that's not possible. It's like, oh no, I guess as it turns out now, it really is. You know, you just layer on layer on layer on layer on layer. It's crazy. All right, so I've got a couple of closing questions for you guys. Let me direct this one towards Julie. So you run a sound company. How do you juggle multiple projects? How do you organize your time in order to be able to do all the things that you want to do creatively with sound and run the business?
Well, I hate doing books, but I have to. I have luckily hired, I have a staff. I got like 10 people. No one's really full time because we just do shows. But I've got a couple good engineers in my pocket that I have had engineer a show with a certain client, and now that client loves them. So now we know, okay, Noel Seymour, John Campbell, Daniel Murphy, they all, we all kind of are interchangeable. And I'm like, okay, great. Because now I can like keep all the business, but spread the wealth with, being able to keep, all the clients happy, my workers happy. And It worked out really well. And, I always try to have the same engineer. I don't ever pull somebody in the middle of a show unless it's me. If I say, okay, I'm coming in because somebody's got a problem, they're like, oh, okay, we're cool with that. You got to have that support team of, A1s, A2s, everyone to just, rely on. So it works out well.
And do you find, so quick follow-up, do you find that, I think how to phrase this question, who hires you, who reaches out to you, and how do people find out about you? Is it just word of mouth and working with each other, or is it through other designers or other engineers?
It's all of the above. I mean, I have a website, but and a couple things have come my way through there, but I need to get the website updated. But I've been doing this for a long time, so and again, also being in with like Dave at Apex, and then he spreads the word, and then you get in with other people, and it's just this weird little circle. And I have been so fortunate to be able to, do what I do and make money and make a decent living. I'm like, dude, I'm the audio chick making noise, and I get paid for it. Like, only in America. So,
only in America,
right?
I just love it, and I'm very passionate about what I do, and everything matters to me. Every little show, and I don't care if it's a high school show, or I do a lot with Altadena Elementary School, and it just they make me laugh and they make me cry, and I love them. So it's just relationships I've developed over the years that people keep coming back. So
that's awesome.
Great.
All right, so Cricket, final question for you. You're walking into a venue, sight unseen.
Okay.
You've never seen the console before.
Oh boy.
Right? Or you never seen this particular console. You may have seen the brand, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start? What's the first thing that you do? You're supporting, 5 or 6 mics. There might be a couple of instruments, a little bit of playback or whatever. Where do you start? This is like last minute, you get called in an emergency. How do you, I've heard people talking about like zeroing out the console or nominal. I'm exposing my ignorance again, right? So where do you start when being confronted with, okay, this is an entirely new situation and I need to get control of it fast with this console and all the stuff that's here?
The first thing I'm going to do is have a conversation with the director. What does the show need? What do you absolutely have to have working? Because then I'll make those the priority. I guess it depends on the venue. I'm probably not going to wipe out a console and start from zero, unless I know for certain that the person who set it up didn't know what they were doing. Mostly because if it's in the venue and it's set up, it's probably working. You know, if I wipe it out, then I literally don't know where anything is. So once I know what the show absolutely needs, I'm going to go to the console and find a way to send signal, whether it's a digital console and I can send pink noise. And I'm going to pop through all of the outputs. So I know exactly what speaker is in what output and what I have access to and where those speakers are. Sending loud pink noise down a speaker helps you find it right away. Like, oh, look, there's something hidden backstage because I can hear it.
And lighting people love it when you do that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But
we make sure that we do it when you guys are focusing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Right? But it lets you know exactly what you have available to you, where things are plugged in, how the console's set up. Because again, if I don't have to start from scratch, I'd rather not. If the system's there and it's tuned and it sounds okay, I don't want to wipe that out. If it sounds horrible, sending pink noise will tell me that it sounds horrible. And I know, okay, I've got to set aside an extra 20 minutes to get that sounding respectable.
Okay.
You know, and then if they say, I need 10 microphones, then I start digging through the closets. What do they have? What kind of microphones do they have? You know, what can I use? Can I cover the stage with foot mics and shotguns? Do I have to go to wireless? Is there a band? Do they need monitors? You know, kind of that. What does the show need? And what do I have in the closet to pull out, to plug in? You know? But I think that's, you know, it's always starting with what the show absolutely has to have. And then if I've got an hour of load in and I get it all working in 45 minutes, I can go to the director and be like, is there like a wish list? Like, my pipe dream is to also have this, you know, then maybe I can start working on that, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So last question, or not, well, my last question, there's a couple of your ones, for the both of you. I've seen a lot of conversation about just microphones in general, right? So there's obviously a bunch of different kinds. They all have different qualities. They have different timbres. They you know, depending on how old they are, whatever, depending on where they're placed, depending on whether they're analog, digital, whatever. So my question is, how is it just over the course of time that you develop an ear that allows you to use a bunch of different microphones and blend them all together so that they all sound of a similar quality? Is that a poorly phrased question?
No.
Are you talking wireless microphones or?
Well, you know, so we would go to, I've been to small theaters where, you know, their mic collection has grown over the years, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say they're all wireless, right? So you've got wireless for talent, but then you've got wired mics for the band. And, you know, there may be a mic that's perfect for a kick drum, but they may not have that mic. So is it, I guess, just over the course of time that you figure out, oh, you know what, if I don't have, I'm going to age myself with this one. If I don't have an SM58, then I could use in a pinch, you know, this and this, or this and get close. Or is that just something that comes with experience?
To some extent, yes. Yeah. I mean, you get your hands on different mics and you listen to them and you put them on different things and you see what they sound like. There's some generalities. The smaller, the bigger the mic, the bigger range of frequencies it can handle, if that makes sense. So if it's an itty bitty tiny mic, it's not going to handle the bass frequencies as well. So you probably don't want to put a tiny little capsule on a kick drum because the kick is low end. So you're going to want a physically bigger mic. Like if you know nothing about mics and you're looking at a closet where you don't have any idea what they are, that's a way to start.
Okay, fair.
But I think, you know, I just did a gala recently that last year that the space said, hey, look, we bought these new mics. And my engineer was like, I want to play with them. And he's like, I'm going to put them on the piano. And I was like, okay, sure. And we put him on the piano, and the piano sounded horrible. And I went up to him at the end of the day. I was like, piano sounds awful. He's like, I'm still working on it. I'm going to make him sound good. I was like, okay. So the next day, the piano sounded horrible. And I was like, dude, we only got one more day. Piano sounds awful. So he turns to the house guy and was like, you have these mics. Like, do you have any advice on how to make the piano sound better? And the guy's like, swap out the mic. Yeah. And like, I laughed, and my engineer was like, fine.
Sometimes it's the simplest answer.
Like, sometimes you just have to listen to it and be like, no, that's not the right one. That wasn't good.
All right. So I've got 2 questions for you guys from viewers, and they are related. So I'm going to ask them together. So the first one, one of our viewers, Tom, asks if he has a UV light box and wants to use that to sanitize his mics and headsets. Do you think there would be any damage to the mics or ClearComm headsets? And then the second question is, as we hopefully prepare to begin reopening theaters and people begin to put microphones on, what can people do to make sure that they are as clean as they can possibly be and are sanitary? I figured I'd save the last one to just really like make you go completely silent. I don't know the answer to the UV. I actually probably should, since it's a lighting thing.
Yeah, that's your gig,
right?
I don't
heard anything.
I don't have any idea how mics would respond to UV. I know, like, wireless mics, the coating on the wireless mics, like on my headphone, is rubber, and I feel like the rubber would not stand up well to UV light, like in the same way that, you know, if you put it outside in the sun for years, it wouldn't.
Okay, sure. Like
it would break. The rubber would break down.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's your physics background talking.
There you go.
Sure. I mean, mic packs can be wiped down with, you know, like rubbing alcohol, you know, that kind of thing. With microphone elements, you can wipe down a cable. But again, I don't have any idea what kind of the long-term damage would be, but certainly in the short term, you can wipe down the cable, but the actual capsule, the head of the microphone, you can't get anything in there. You can't get alcohol or water. Some wireless mics can handle distilled water, but I'm not sure that distilled water would do anything.
Sure.
Cleaning wise.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky thing that we're all kind of going to have to figure out. But I think, so.
Yeah, we typically wipe things down with rubbing alcohol. Just put it on a towel and wipe it down. And I mean, during the run of a show, we don't really clean the mic elements, but I know when they come back, I clean them with Goof Off, which of course is a cleaner, not really maybe a disinfector, but trust me, that'll kill anything that's on the microphone. And then of course, you know, on the, I don't know if we can say this, but you know, we use condoms on the mic pouches.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, with the mic packs. And then I personally don't like to reuse them. I like to put one on every night. You know, some producers will be like, hey, we got to save money. But
right.
You know, I just say, hey, especially now, I don't think I'll have a hard time pushing that through.
Right. Save money somewhere else.
Yeah, you know, and you talk with the actor with what they're doing. And, you know, some actors are really sweaty and they come and tell you, oh my God, I trash mics all the time. So, you know, we try to work together with people on that and keep everyone safe. And of course, we've always had hand sanitizer everywhere around.
Yeah, I was like, it's standard on an A2 table. They have the hand sanitizer.
It's funny because I was asked by Musical Theater West, you know, about reopening and what to do. And I'm like, you know, sound, we've already been doing this. We clean the packs. We already have hand sanitizer everywhere. Their mic belts get washed with their, you know, costumes or whatever. And all that stuff is kind of taken care of. But and again, it's the same person using it. It's not like now you get this one and some guy wore it last night, but we don't do that. We keep everything to the same.
Right. Yeah, got it. Yeah. All right. Well, my goodness, I want to thank you both tremendously. I just so appreciate you guys taking the time and meeting with our educators and meeting with our students and discussing all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Been an honor.
Yeah, it's exciting. I love talking about what I do.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when we did in the last episode, we interviewed projection designer Rhyne, and we were talking afterward, and he said, you know what, this actually got me really like excited about going back and doing things. And I think we're all starting to feel that. We're all starting to feel like, okay, it's time. It's time to do the show.
I miss it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, thank you both tremendously. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. So before we go, I wanted to share this resource with you guys. So this is a book called Digital Technical Theater Simplified. It's by an author named Drew Campbell. And so here's the thing. I'm an audio neophyte, right? And I understood almost everything in this book. It's a great handy resource for those who are wanting to learn more, not only about audio, but about lighting and video. There's even some show control in here. And it's the specific thing is that it's geared towards people working within limited budgets. So that's Digital Technical Theater Simplified by Drew Campbell. I found it to be a pretty comprehensive read, and I highly recommend it. So thanks again to Cricket Myers and Julie Ferrin, along with our students, Sol, Z, and Luke, and our educators, Dawn and Tay. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us here at the Tech Table.
Hey, it's Jason. If you like what you saw, take a second and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell and follow us on all social media. Thanks for watching.